Welcome to a Kirblog all about a certain video game character. Can't believe that it took me 3 whole years to talk all about Kirbys. Reason for being named that. I came up with that in about 60 whole seconds, and that's not bad, I would say. I'd give it like a solid B. Hi, everybody who hasn't already closed out the fucking window. This subject, welcome to September, by the way. Kicking things off, this is a question submitted, I don't even remember how long ago, actually, by Chuck Bio on the Tome Facebook page. Hey, Kirb, I'm just wondering, what was your favorite thing about Kirby, since your avatar was a black and white Kirby with a Link hat, which is true. For those of you who don't know that. And for those of you who don't know why that is, before I continue forward, I'm actually going to suggest you go take a listen to one of the very first Kirblogs that I ever did, in case you're a new listener, maybe missed that one, that was simply titled, Where Does Kirbifer Come From? And I go into the full story of where the screen name and the character as a result kind of originated from. So since I've already kind of told that story, I want to leave that out and just talk about specifically the source material, as in Kirby. Where to start? Kirby is one of those characters that is just, much like a lot of Nintendo's other icons, he's just kind of been ingrained in my life for as long as I can remember. I was really trying to think about it ahead of time before I recorded this, and I believe, and I could maybe be wrong because it's been over 20 years already, but I do believe that the first exposure I had to Kirby as a character was playing Kirby's Dream Land on the original Game Boy. In fact, I think it might have not even been my copy. I think I was just like playing somebody else's copy of it and was just enjoying it and playing through it. And I liked the character and everything. And oddly enough, just as kind of a general note going into this, even though my name does come from Kirby, and I am a big fan of the character and the franchise as a whole, it's not one of my favorite game series of all time. In the case of that, there's been a whole lot of Kirby games that I simply haven't played. There's certainly a lot of them, but not, every single one in existence or anything. But yeah, I do remember playing Kirby's Dream Land, I believe is the first game that I was exposed to in the series. And then I think that I rented Kirby's Adventure, for the NES. This was long ago enough to where you could still rent, NES games from a Blockbuster. And I believe shortly after that was, not the case anymore. But I did briefly rent Kirby's Adventure, really liked it, only played it for a little while, for as long as I managed to have it for. And then the very first Kirby game that I was really, really big into for a long time, and I used to rent this a lot before I finally owned a copy myself, was, of course, Kirby Superstar for the Super Nintendo, which for a long time I actually kind of assumed wasn't the big game that a lot of Kirby fans remember the most for, because I basically missed out on Kirby's Dream Land 2 and 3 until way later. I didn't play Dreamland 2 until I had it on the virtual console, or rather the eShop on the 3DS. And I think I only played Kirby's Dream Land 3 at like somebody's house like a few years ago. Can't even remember. But Superstar was the one that I was absolutely fixated on, and I have 100% of that game numerous times. It's been a while. The last time that I actually did that was when there was the remake, Kirby Superstar Ultra, of course, on the DS, which I was also really big into. It was a great remake. Superstar is also what got me really big into liking Meta Knight as a character, as I'm sure a lot of young kids who were just, whoa, he's cool, and he's like a dark Kirby with a sword or whatever. It's just, easy to be enticed by this, badass, edgy alternative, before Shadow the Hedgehog was the thing, I suppose. But I really liked that character as a result of Superstar in particular, with the Revenge of Meta Knight mode. Around that same time, I think I had been renting Kirby's Dream Course, Kirby's Dream Course and Kirby's Avalanche, both of which I had absolutely no idea what the hell I was doing, because I had basically only really been playing platformers all my life up until a certain point. So Kirby's Avalanche, I feel like maybe I might have played Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine before Kirby's Avalanche, but those two games were my introduction to the Puyo Pop puzzle series, which I think is awesome. And Kirby's Dream Course, I just had zero clue what the hell I was doing. I didn't even realize that it was like a golf kind of game, or really. I just kind of went with it and did whatever. believe I did also briefly play Kirby Pinball Land on somebody else's Game Boy, and then frustratingly, probably threw my own Game Boy at a fucking window because of Kirby's Tilt and Tumble, which I did not enjoy very much. The other big one that I was really, really massively into for a while was Kirby 64, The Crystal Shards, which, is funny because I kind of came and went with that game a bit. Like, I was obsessed with it when it first came out. It's just crazy to think that was the early 2000s by now. It was like 15, 16 years ago. But also, like, then for a while I didn't like it because I totally took for granted how creative that game was, and the fact that it had all the different, like, combo powers between I think, like, the 7 or 8 different, like, basic powers. Like, that was such a cool idea that they've never done again. And I hate to say that I think the reason they didn't do that again is probably because a lot of kids had the same kind of, I'm assuming, the same kind of reaction that I did, where it's like, oh man, but I want all the cool individual powers. I don't want these combinations of only, the 8 regular powers. I want, like, all the individual ones, and so that's all they've really been doing since then, which is totally fine. Like, the games are still fun for what they are, but it's kind of a shame that we've never really had a game like that ever again. 64 was very kind of unique to itself. I feel like there's never really been a Kirby game quite like it, and not just in terms of the powers, but, like, the aesthetics and the gameplay itself. Like, a lot of the other ones very much feel like they're all, like, almost kind of with the same engine, maybe, especially the handheld ones, which I've also, of course, played Amazing Mirror, which was all right, very frustrating, and Nightmare in Dreamland, which is, just the remake of Adventure, of course. I remember, I think I beat Nightmare in Dreamland in, like, a day, actually, like, the day that I got it. And I think a few of the other ones, I've played a little bit of Return to Dreamland, but I haven't really played extensively any other Kirby games since then, to be honest. Oh, of course, I should also mention another spin-off one I was really majorly into, and only rented it, never owned it, was Kirby's Air Ride, which I don't think I 100%ed that game, but I remember, like, unlocking a whole lot of different things in it because I was obsessed with, like, the challenge wall. That game very much had the Smash Brothers sense of polish to it, in terms of, like, that Sakurai and HAL Laboratory at the time kind of touch to it and everything. Which I should also mention, I forgot to say on the note of Meta Knight, I was very happy, was disappointed that he was not in Melee, and then was very happy when he was revealed in Brawl. Played that fucking trailer like a million times over and over again for Smash Brothers Brawl in 2007, which I'm sure I probably mentioned in the Smash Kirblog we did a while ago. But yeah, that's kind of my history with the games. Specifically, I guess some other kind of funny stories regarding my history with Kirby as a character and the franchise in general. So I became aware of the Kirby anime a few years before it came out in the U.S. In the form of Kirby Right Back At Ya, which I also did watch extensively, even though it's a good show, more so in Japanese. Sorry, guys. But yeah, I followed that pretty extensively, but I knew about it ahead of time, actually, through kind of weird means. I found out about the Kirby anime in Japan as it was coming out, and also the advent of eBay at the same time. If I'm remembering correctly, I think that, and Dad and I talked about this on the Kirbo Dad Pokemon Kirblog we did almost a whole year ago now. It's crazy how fucking quickly 2016 has passed already. We were collecting the Pokemon 2-inch figures off of this one guy who he was just like selling them on like some like kind of like third party like website, and he was selling Pokemon figures. But it wasn't until later where we were starting to go on eBay, and my dad had been an eBay user for a long time by that point, but I didn't really know what it was until I learned about eBay through him. And then I started searching for things on there for kind of like rare games and video game related things that I wasn't able to find before, that we couldn't find anymore on, on like at like GameStop or Electronics Boutique as we used to go to back in the day, and places like that. And there weren't like specialty stores. So that was where I was able to find stuff like Bomberman 64, The Second Attack, and some Mario RPG things and stuff like that. But one of the first big things that I strived to, and my dad and I would stay up and try to keep an eye out for bidding on and getting the toys of, were the Kirby anime official plushies that now you can just basically go to the Nintendo World store. I think you can order them offline a lot more easily. The plushies of Kirby and all the different Kirby forms, and Meta Knight and King Dedede and Waddle Dee. And I found a plush toy of Meta Knight, and if it says anything, that I was striving to get the Meta Knight doll before a Kirby doll, if that speaks volumes on me. So even though it wasn't something we were physically doing in real life somewhere at a store or something, we basically did make a quest out of it. It was the first time we'd ever, like teamed up on trying to bid for something. So we got the Meta Knight plushie, and then like a while later we got the Kirby plushie. So I have both of those, and it's funny because now that I've seen the ones that they have, and they're basically just like the same like models or whatever that they have at Nintendo World Store, but they're made out of slightly different material. So I actually still kind of covet mine, and like, oh, I have like a special one that came from Japan or whatever. Also, kind of funny story about that too. So I learned way later that in Japan they refer to crane machines as UFO catchers. And so when I was seeing the Kirby and Meta Knight and all the Kirby anime plush dolls, on eBay, and they were being labeled as like Meta Knight, Kirby UFO catcher plush doll or whatever, at one point, because of that, I thought that the Kirby anime series was called Kirby UFO catcher. Like he was some kind of like alien hunter or something. I have no idea. I hadn't seen any footage or any pictures or anything from the show before. All I had ever seen was the Japanese website for the show at the time. And all I could really do was navigate through the character profiles and just seeing the pictures of like, Tiff and Tuff and, the customer service guy like from the Nightmare Incorporated company or whatever, that stuff. And I knew nothing about the show itself and what was happening with it until, way later when we finally got it and I was watching it on the Fox box, which then eventually became 4Kids TV. So that was kind of my whole thing with that. Kind of earlier note about the Kirby 64 bit. So the time where I was really obsessed with that game in particular. So I remember me and my friends used to play pretend a lot, and this was kind of the early sort of the kind of blueprints for what then became Balancing Act with the characters based on me and my friends, fighting against bad guys and blah blah blah. And at the time, surprisingly, I don't think I've talked about this before. Maybe like very briefly in other Kirblogs, but at the time when Balancing Acts would, and it was called something else back then, which I won't say what it was, but because it's embarrassing sounding. The primordial version of that, which was basically just me and my friends playing pretend. At the time, in addition to the characters based on ourselves, where we had powers and things, we had like pre-existing like video game and anime and cartoon things like part of the thing that we were doing like as characters. So like Pokemon was a big part of it and everything, but there was one particular like story we came up with where it was like the one of the bad guys we were fighting against had like snuck his way into like the cyber world of this video game or something, and we had been doing detective work and finding out like, okay, if we go to the first level of Ripple Star and we use the fire and ice combination power, and this one part of the level will open up a portal into the game world, and we'll go in and we'll fight him, and the bad guy has all of the different powers of that particular game. So we had all the individual like Kirby abilities or whatever we had to fight it. It was very silly. We were like 12 or something like that. I don't even remember. But it was like early middle school and still just like, goofing around with like role playing and coming up with like weird stories and shit. But Kirby 64, I remember specifically because that was like part of a story of the day or something. And it was very weird, but kind of cool at the time. Again, we were 12, so shrug. But yeah, so that was a day of doing that. And, after actually beating the game and everything. I also remember, I think, that game I was so big into, I 100%ed it, and I never saw the non 100% ending where you don't get to go to the final stage and fight against 0-2 or whatever until after I had unlocked it in the theater mode or whatever. I'd been there, and I think that I had talked a little bit about this in the like internet games Kirblog that I did a few months ago. I'm sure I probably talked about the Kirby fan games thing that was made by Kirby Warrior. If he ever hears this, maybe, probably not. But the reason I found that, and now this is the final story I'm going to tell as part of this, was because of the wonderful fan site that is still running and up until this day, Kirby's Rainbow Resort, which for those of you who don't know, if you haven't been keeping up with your tome trivia, is the origin point of Kinder Spirit. Kinder Spirit is based on this girl Jackie, Sarah Jackie, who's the I believe she was one of the head people in charge of that website, along with a bunch of other people whose screen names unfortunately I can't remember off the top of my head. Sorry guys, but Kinder Spirit is the character of Tome is based off of one of the administrators and owners of that website. So as a young lad browsing on the internet, and for those of you who don't know, I'm sure I've said this a few times before, but a lot of the Net King characters are based on all of the early websites that I went to. And Kinder Spirit was basically representing Kirby's Rainbow Resort, which I'm actually gonna go to even the site right now and see if I can look up the staff, because I remember I've met a few of the other people. It looks like a lot of them aren't actually like working there anymore, unfortunately. But Kinder Spirit is still one of the original founders. And I think that I did at some point probably go to the forum on the site. I think, because I think that I had even submitted some fan art there or something. I believe. I could be remembering incorrectly, but either way. I had frequented that site a lot, and they had all this really cool info about basically every single Kirby thing in existence. I'll even have like a link to it in case you guys have never been to it before. I had been visiting there for a long time. And actually, I remember also, I think that they even got a lot of the early, I remember now, that's right. They were covering the Smash Brothers games as well, because they had Kirby characters in them. And I went there, and they had like some of the early screen caps. This is also back when I was following when Melee was coming out, because I didn't get it until like by the time Christmas was happening, because it came out I think in November of that year. So I got it. But I was following stuff about it, and I couldn't see, there was no YouTube at that time. I couldn't see videos of it or whatever. So I was seeing, early screenshots and stuff, including, pictures of some of the levels, in their earlier forms before they were changed. And I think even, that's where I found out that Meta Knight was not a character, because they had info about what all of the unlockable characters were. So I found out all of the secret characters in the game through Kirby's Rainbow Resort specifically. That was the first. I didn't see pictures of them just yet, but I remember seeing them there in particular. And then I think also SarahB.net also had a lot of stuff there too, if I'm remembering right, with Smash Bros. Melee coming out. But anyway, so Kirby's Rainbow Resort, I have a lot of fond memories of going to work with my dad, which we'd also talked about on the Kirblog. Where I would go on the internet, and I would search around on these different sites for cheat codes or whatever, things like that. And Kirby's Rainbow Resort was one of the early websites that I discovered. And I think they even had MIDIs of some of the Kirby music, when I used to collect a lot of MIDIs back in the day and things like that. And so Kirby, and also of course with just formulating my screen name and everything, Kirby is a series that, even though it's still it's evolved very much, and it's had lots of really cool stuff everywhere and a lot of really good games. Planet Robobot, from the little bit that I've played of it, is one of the coolest games that they've made. It seems like it's almost kind of the closest one to having a serious kind of tone to it, for Kirby, that is. But yeah, I have plenty of admiration for the series still, even though I haven't extensively followed it. It's something that the biggest soft spot I have for it is the fact that it reminds me of the really, really early days of my time on the internet. Even before I was Kirbifer. Even before I even made that screen name, Rainbow Resort and all the games that I was playing kind of surrounding that. That's all what I thought. But even again, I made the Kirby for screen name when I was 12, around the time of the Kirby 64 release and just that early time and everything. So it was all kind of all associated together, and it was leading into that beginning point in time when I was learning about the internet in general. And so those are a bunch of fun Kirby stories that I had to share with you all. It's kind of a simple one this time, but it's very strange, kind of with many of these topics, that I'm how did it take me this long to finally talk about this? So thank you for this question. I very much appreciate it. I hope that you all enjoyed the couple stories I had to share. So that said, in the comments below, if you have any fun stories to share regarding Kirby in general, whether it's the games, the show, any of the toys or anything, did you go to Kirby's Rainbow Resort? Did you know anybody from kind of around that time either? Did you have a Kirby-related screen name, perhaps, that still embarrasses you to this day, like mine does with Kirby for 15, because I have to keep the 15 in my fucking YouTube, forever. So yeah. Anyway, leave your comments and stories below. I'd love to hear them. And if you have future Kirblog topics related to Kirby or another video game or anything else or otherwise, leave a comment about that too. And I will possibly do it. Mayhaps. I don't know. We'll find out. Maybe. You don't know. You'll never know. Bye.